Hello, today we will be discussing the behavioral theory. We will be looking into the three main contributors of the theory, Ivan Pavlov, B.F. Skinner, and John B. Watson. Ivan Pavlov became known when he began research on behavioralism and responses in animals. He used dogs to prove his theory on classical conditioning. He believed that everything from speaking to emotional responses were patterns of stimulus and response. He used dog salivation to prove his theory by using a whistle and food. He noticed that the dog salivated when food was in front of him, and then when he blew a whistle with no food around, there was no salivation. Pavlov then put food in front of the dog and then later whistled, and there was salivation. After continuous rounds of this, the dog would later salivate at the sound of the whistle, even if there was no food. This experiment raised questions on if the same tactics would work on a human. Experiments were done by other scientists involving children, and the outcome seemed to be the same as Pavlov's dog's experiment. Pavlov's theories are seen in classrooms today. According to Christopher Nesbitt, teachers use Pavlov's theory when using negative and positive reinforcement. Teachers make it clear to their children what their expectations are. They also remind children that going against these expectations are believed to be bad behavior. In order to maintain these positive behaviors in class, the teacher may reward students with snacks, extra playtime, and games. If children go against the expectations, then they are punished. They may get taken out of an activity or a reward may be taken back. By doing those things, it influences the students in the classroom to act certain ways. Now we're going to look at B.F. Skinner. B.F. Skinner's theory was influenced by John B. Watson. Dr. Skinner started his education at Hamilton College in upstate New York, where he received his B.A. in English. He goes on later and earns his master's in psychology from Harvard University in 1930. During this time, he also received his doctorates during 1931 to 1936. Skinner graduates from Harvard to try a career in journalism and is not successful and is offered a job to teach at the University of Minnesota in 1936. Around 1945, Skinner becomes the chairman of the psychology department at Indiana University. He was then invited to teach at Harvard in 1948. Operant conditioning is a type of learning where the behavior of an individual is controlled by the consequences. In this, there is positive reinforcement, works by presenting a motivating item to the person after the desired behavior is exhibited, making the behavior more likely to happen in the future. Negative reinforcement is a response or behavior is strengthened by stopping, removing, or avoiding a negative outcome or adverse stimulus. For positive punishment, try to think of it as adding a negative consequence after an undesired behavior is admitted to decrease future responses. As for negative punishment, try to think of it as taking away a certain desired item after an undesired behavior happens in order to decrease future responses. Positive reinforcement is used to increase the likelihood of a desirable behavior. Punishment is used to decrease the likelihood of an undesirable behavior. By understanding the differences, it can help control behaviors in the classroom. An example is by giving a positive feedback to a student, such as a compliment, approval, words of encouragement, or anything that is positive can help increase a positive behavior from that child, such as them wanting to do better on the next assignment. Another example of using operant conditioning in the classroom is rewarding the students with a classroom dollar if they receive an A on the assignment. They can use the dollar how they want. This is encouraging the students who want to do better on assignments to receive another dollar. Next, we're going to look at John B. Watson. John B. Watson is said to be the father of behavioralism. He attended Furman University in South Carolina, where he received his master's degree at the young age of 21. Then he attended the University of Chicago graduate program, where he studied psychology. He remained at the University of Chicago, becoming the professor before leaving to accept a position at Johns Hopkins. Watson performed an experiment called the Ellie Albert experiment, where he used a baby approximately 8 months of the age. The baby was said to be a child of a nurse at the hospital. Watson believed that all children have a fear of loud noises. He then wanted to prove that he could condition the child to fear something they generally would not fear. Watson showed the rats to the child, and there was no fear. He then made a loud noise, and the child cried in fear. He then showed the child that the rat along with the loud noise, and the child cried again. Finally, he showed the child just the rat again, and the child had been conditioned to fear the rat. Take a look at the photo provided to further understand the experiment. Watson successfully conditioned the child to fear the rat without the noise. Behavioralism is simply the study of what people can do. The main idea of behavioralism is to be able to control and predict what the human will do. Watson's philosophy was that children can be whatever or whomever the parents want them to be. There are many factors that come into play when we talk about behaviorism. Here are a few. When we think about early childhood special education, we think about the children, their behavior, and what influences that behavior. Nature versus nurture. Watson was in favor of the nurture side, but his parenting approach was often viewed more than the nature side of the spectrum. In the classroom, we spend a lot of time observing our students, and we like to think that after some time we can predict their wants and their needs. Conditioning is the process of learning to react in the environment. But this is something that we see in ECSP classrooms. Our students may have a hard time figuring out how to react to the new environment that they have been put into.